Hello everyone, welcome to Apex Hour. My name is Nikhil Madan, and in today's video we are going to learn about user agent flow with implicit grant type. Before I proceed, I would like to tell you about myself. My name is Nikhil Madan and I'm a Salesforce technical architect with PepsiCo, and I live in Dallas, and I own a blog with Salesforce Musketeer, and I have also a channel with Salesforce Musketeer. So we have following agendas where we are going to cover user agent flow and learn about its definition, and we will see what is implicit grant type, and then we will also see in demo how it works. So what is a user agent flow? So in this flow, user authorizes a native desktop or mobile application or single page application to access data using an external or embedded browser. It uses implicit grant type. So when you have any application downloaded locally in your system, so that's called native desktop application, or you have a mobile application in your mobile, or single page application, for example, Netflix, where the it dynamically renders to user based on user interaction and dynamically gets the data from a server. So that is single page application. So, and when we don't want these kind of application to store a client secret in them, then we go with the user agent flow. So it uses implicit grant type. And what is a grant? So grant is a method of acquiring an access token. An access token is a short-lived session ID that once anybody has this, then they can get the access of the data in the protected resource. For example, in Salesforce, once I have an access token, then I can get the data from Salesforce. Now, what is implicit grant? So it's a simplified flow where the access token is returned directly to the client. In this implicit flow, the authorization server may return the access token as a parameter in the callback URL or as a response to the form post. So here, what happens is I made a request to the authorization endpoint of a Salesforce, and in return, I get the URL where the access token is encoded in that URL. So that is an implicit grant. Although we are learning this user agent flow, but Salesforce don't recommend this option because there is a potential of uh, this access token can get leaked. So Salesforce recommend a different flow, which I will also tell you in for the slides. So some key points that we need to consider. So access token and URLs are easily leaked as it is encoded in redirectional URL. That's what I just said. So you must use window.location.replace to remove the callback from browser history. So when browser, if you see that browser history, it stores some data in it. So when you put your cursor on the browser search, then it automatically gives you data based on the browser history. So it might store the access token also. So we can use this window.location.replace to remove this callback URL or this URL with access token. So we use this flow when we can't trust the user agent application with the client secret. So that is one of the key points that why we want to use user agent, that we don't want a client secret to be shared with those applications. It is the responsibility of SPO native application to take care of refresh token. So once they get the access token, they all can also get refresh token. And refresh token is a sensitive thing which they need to take care of so that it doesn't get leaked from there. Now, the Salesforce recommends using OR 2.0 web server flow with proof key for code exchange instead of user agent flow. So I've told you when we should use user agent flow, when we can't give the client secret and we are using the native desktop applications or SPA, then we use user agent. So in these scenarios, go with the uh, web server flow with proof key for code exchange instead of user agent flow. But we should also learn user agent flow for our legacy systems as well as for exam purpose. So when we will create a connected app, we can put a scope there of refresh token. So if that scope is not given, then we will not get the refresh token back from the authorization server. But if we give this refresh token, then we get the authorization token back from the server. So implicit flow bypass the code exchange step, and instead the access token is returned in the query string fragment to the client immediately. It is a very important thing here to remember that if you remember, in web server flow, we first hit the token endpoint where we get authorization token endpoint where we get the authorization code first. Once we fetch that authorization code, then we hit the token endpoint and get the access token. But here we just made a one request where we directly get the access token, so there's no intermediate step of retrieving the authorization code. So when to use it, although I've already explained when to use it, but let's go through it again. So when you are using native application and don't want to save client secret in it, so that there's a potential that it might get leaked once they decode the application, or in single page applications when you cannot use a client secret because the entire source available to the browser and you can check the browser code, right? By you can right click on it and inspect, and you can check the browser URL. So it is not safe to store client secret when you're using SPA, single page applications. Then what is recommended? Then recommended is authorization code flow, which make use of a proof key for code exchange. For this, you can check my next video, which I'll upload in Salesforce Musketeer. That if you want to go with, if you want to learn about this proof key for code exchange. Now let's see what happens. So the first step, if you see here, from the desktop application, user request an access token, and it reaches to a authorization server. So basically it's a get method, not a post. So get method is made to the authorization endpoint, where the response type is a token. We provide the client ID. We give the scope. This scope is the same scope which you give in the connected app. It could be less than that, but it could not be more than that. Then you have a redirection URI. This URI must match with the redirection URI you put in the connected app. Otherwise, you will not get the access token back. Then we have a state and display. These are the optional, which you can check in this Salesforce document, that what option values you can provide to it. Then once you hit the authorization endpoint with all these values, client ID and the scope and redirectional URL, then it will then the web browser will show you a page where you have to enter the credentials. Once you enter the credentials, then access token will be issued in the response callback URL. Then once you get the access token, refresh token, then based on that you can fetch the data from the Salesforce system using that access token. It's very simple. So let's go further. So what is the difference between authorization grant type and implicit grant type? So I uploaded my first video in identity and access management section about the OAuth web server flow, where I show what is authorization grant type. But here we are learning implicit grant type. So what is exactly the difference between that? So in authorization code grant type, client makes first request to obtain authorization code, and then once they have that authorization code, they will make another request using that authorization code to get the access token. So if you see, we are making two requests, one to the authorization endpoint, then second to the token endpoint in authorization grant type. However, in user agent implicit grant type, client receives the access token in one request only for authorization request. We don't have a concept of authorization code in implicit grant type, and we do not have a client secret. We do not have to pass client secret to the URL in implicit grant type. So this is very important point. I copied this from the Salesforce document. If you see this link, it tells that you have to use OAuth web server with proof key for code exchange instead of user agent flow. It is intended to be used for user agent based client that can't keep a client secret because of all the application code and storage is easily accessible. So these are the source of information where I copied the data and where I learned about this user agent flow. Now we will go into demo. In demo, what we will see, I have installed the Postman application locally in my system, and using that application I will show you how we can go through this user agent flow. So this is the org which I'm going to use to show demo. First, I'll go to App Manager, and then I will click on New Connected App, and here I will say that user agent demo postman December 21st, and I will provide my email ID here, and I will enable OAuth, and here I will put my any website link. I will put this link, so I'll go here. So I will come here and give this callback URL of my website, and here I will give the access full access, and if I want refresh token I will give refresh token access as well, and I think that's it. Then I will just save it. Now I will try to get the consumer ID and consumer key. So here I got the consumer key. We don't need consumer secret as we discussed for the user agent flow, so consumer key is enough. Now I will open the postman. So first I will do is provide the my custom domain here, which I can copy it from here. My custom domain was this. Authorize this. If you see, I'm providing the endpoint also, authorization endpoint, and now what I will do here is I will put the parameters, like for example response type, which is token, and then I will put client ID, which I will copy it from here. So I'll copy this client ID and I'll put it in the postman here, and then I will provide the key, which is redirection URI, and I will put my website name, which is this. I'll remove the slash, and just remember you have to click on send and download, because you have to open that in the browser. So I'll say demo_test 2. I'll save it and I will open it. So once I clicked on that file, it opens it here like this, where it asks me that do you allow access. I already had it logged in, that's why I was coming up with this page. Otherwise it had asked me to put credentials, and I would have put my username and password, and then this would have been the second page. But I'll click on allow access, and once I do this, you can copy it. It redirects me to the redirect URL which we provided. But if you see, if I copy this here and I'll put it in the here for you, if you see it here, that I got the access token here. And once you get the access token, then you can always get the data from the Salesforce. Only thing you need to remember, this %21 needs to be replaced with the exclamation, and then now you got the access token. After this access token, now you can fetch account data and lead data from the Salesforce system. So I think this ends up our demo. If you like our video, please subscribe to Apex Hour channel. Thank you.